Welcome back, everyone, to Part 15 of our Revenue Cycle Management training. Today, we are tackling one of the most common and frankly most frustrating hurdles in medical billing: authorization and pre-certification denials. Specifically, we're zeroing in on claim adjustment reason codes CO197 and CO198. If you're an AR associate looking to recover lost revenue and turn those denials into dollars, you are exactly in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here is our step-by-step playbook for today. We're going to cover definitions and codes, root causes, resolution workflows, a caller note template, and then we'll finish up with a knowledge check.
All right, Section 1, Definition and Types of Authorization.
So at its core, an authorization is really just the process of getting a yes from the payer to provide a certain service. But the timeline is literally everything here. A prior authorization, or pre-auth, means the healthcare provider got that approval before the patient actually received the service. On the flip side, a retroactive authorization, which we usually just call a retro-auth, means you're asking for that approval after the service has already been provided. You definitely want to keep this timeline straight because it completely dictates your next steps.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between the two main denial codes. When a payer denies a claim for an authorization issue, you're typically going to see one of two claim adjustment reason codes on your remit. CO197, that means the pre-certification or authorization is completely absent. The payer literally has no record of it whatsoever. But CO198 means an authorization was actually obtained, but the services billed exceeded what was approved. Like, maybe the provider billed for more units or dates of service than the payer originally greenlit.
Moving right along to Section 2, Root Cause Analysis.
So why do these denials even happen? Well, there are a few primary culprits. The most obvious one is that the healthcare provider simply went ahead and rendered the treatment without ever getting payer approval. Another cause, which ties right back to CO198, is that the authorization units or dates were just exceeded. But honestly, here is where you can often score a super easy win. Sometimes a perfectly valid authorization was obtained, but it was just accidentally omitted from the claim form. It happens all the time. Finally, you might see a disconnect where the hospital successfully obtained a pre-cert for the facility side, but that pre-cert just wasn't applied to the professional claim.
All right, Section 3, Step-by-Step Resolution Workflows and Decision Trees. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Block 23 on the CMS 1500 claim form. If you get a CO197 denial for an absent authorization, this is absolutely the first place you should look. Did someone just forget to type it in? Jump into your billing system and check. If you find a valid prior authorization number floating around in the system or in the previous account notes, just give that number to the payer representative and ask them to reprocess the claim. Boom, done. But what if there really is no authorization on file? Your next step is to check the place of service, or POS code. If you see POS 23, you are looking at an emergency service. And guys, this is a massive exception to the rule. Emergency treatments generally bypass prior authorization requirements altogether. So if your claim has POS 23, your workflow is incredibly simple. Call the payer, politely point out that this was an emergency service, and request immediate reprocessing. Let's look at another huge place of service exception, POS 21, which stands for inpatient hospital. If you are working a professional claim with POS 21 and it denies for authorization, call the payer and ask them to look at the corresponding hospital or facility claim. Very often the hospital actually did obtain a pre-certification number for the patient's stay. If they did, you can just request the payer rep to process your professional claim using that exact same hospital pre-cert number. It's a fantastic trick to salvage a claim that looks totally dead in the water.
Okay, so what if it's not an emergency, it's not inpatient, and there genuinely is no authorization on file anywhere? This is where you attempt the retroactive authorization workflow. While you have the payer on the phone, ask them straight up if they accept retroauths. If they say yes, you'll need to grab the contact details, like phone and fax numbers, for their Utilization Management Review, or UMR department. You'll then contact the UMR department directly to request that retroactive approval.
But we all know payers are strict, and sometimes a retro-auth simply isn't an option. When that happens, you really only have two final paths. The first is filing a clinical appeal. This means you have to gather up the complete medical records and send them over to the payer to definitively prove the medical necessity of the service provided. But if you file that appeal, exhaust all your options, and the payer still denies the claim, well, then you hit the end of the road, a provider write-off. Remember, a write-off is the absolute last resort, taken only when the claim is truly unrecoverable.
Moving into Section 4,
the standard RAR caller note template.
So here is a standardized AR caller note template specifically tailored for a no authorization scenario. It ensures anyone who looks at the account later knows exactly what happened. Always include the claim details, the specific actions you took, like checking for POS 23 or calling UMR, your next steps, and definitely the payer representative's reference number. I promise you, good notes save so much time and money down the line.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into our knowledge check.
Question 1. What place of service, or POS code, is used for emergency services that typically bypass prior authorization? Take a quick second to think about that workflow we just discussed. Got it? The answer is POS 23. Remember, if you see POS 23 on a claim denied for no authorization, your immediate action is to call the payer and request reprocessing based on the emergency nature of the visit. Okay, question 2. Which claim adjustment reason code indicates that a pre-certification or authorization was completely absent? We compared two very specific codes earlier on. The answer is CO197. Keep in mind the distinction here. CO197 means completely absent, while CO198 means an authorization actually existed, but the billed services exceeded the approved limits. And finally, question 3. Which specific payer department must you contact to request a retroactive authorization if one was not obtained before the service?
The answer is the Utilization Management Review, or UMR department. Fantastic job if you got all 3 of those correct. You are seriously well on your way to mastering these specific denials.
By mastering this exact authorization decision tree, double-checking those POS codes, and knowing exactly when to push for a retro auth or a clinical appeal, you literally have the power to recover significant lost revenue for your practice. Think about your own aging report right now. How many thousands of dollars are just hiding in plain sight, waiting for a quick POS 23 or POS 21 check? Go find out. Share and subscribe for free courses on Decode Healthcare with Harshal.